In this video, I am going to explain exactly how I overcame my excessive blushing after 10 years of suffering, and I'm going to teach you how you can do it too without using therapy or medication or surgery or any sort of medical help. I'll give you a step-by-step system that will allow you to start overcoming this today. Or later today or tomorrow or whenever you're ready to start. I encourage you to start as soon as possible. Now, this is my third time making this video. The first two times I made this video over the past couple of months, it was about an hour long, and nobody's watched it really all the way through because it's just too long, and TikTok and social media has completely fried our attention spans. So I apologize for making a video that long. So I have tried to do everything I can to condense all of the information down into maybe 30 minutes. I don't know. I'm going to shoot for that. If that's still too long for you, then this problem probably doesn't mean enough to you. Because I know if I was watching this video when I was dealing with this, I would have absolutely loved a 30-minute video telling me exactly what I needed to do. So I'm trying to make every minute of this worth your time, and you can judge it as you go if you want to keep watching or not. So why am I making this video? Well, mainly because for a few reasons. Well, one is many people are suffering from this problem. I see so many people online struggling, and there's just no good information for them online. They try all these different products and creams and makeups and surgeries and medications and all of this stuff that everybody's recommending to each other. And honestly, most of these solutions just make the problem worse. They just kind of hide it or cover it up, or they try to, if you're here watching this video and you've tried those things, you know what I'm talking about. Clearly, you're still in pain. So they just don't work. I promise you, if you keep using them, they only make your problem worse over time. I also want to prove that this method that I'm about to teach you actually works. I believe it is the only method that you can possibly use to overcome this. And I want to earn your trust by, one, making this video talking about how I used it in my own life, but two, I want you to actually try to use this stuff and see that it actually works. And lastly is, after I earn your trust, I want some of you to become my clients. Now, I know a lot of you are students who can't afford anything, and that's totally fine. Go ahead, watch this free content, give it your best shot on your own. But what you will realize is that it's not easy. It takes time. It's difficult. And it's easy to fall back in your old thought patterns and your old habits. And so if you got value from this video, if you're like, wow, this could work for me, and you want some more information, book a call with me down below, and I can tell you about my coaching program. No pressure to buy or anything. And at the very least, you and I can have a conversation about what you're going through, and I can give you my personal recommendations for what you should do to get over this. But it's a good opportunity for you to talk about this with somebody. And if you feel nervous about doing that, you're exactly the person that should be making that call. And I'll explain why in this video. Okay. So who is this for? This is for any of you who are dealing with excessive blushing. And what I mean by that is anybody who turns beet red in social situations. You panic about it when it starts happening in front of people. You start having these thoughts of, oh my gosh, I'm blushing. Don't blush, don't blush, don't blush. What do they think of me? You're afraid of what other people are thinking about you in that moment. You find it super embarrassing. You're afraid of it happening. You're constantly anxious. All of this is for you. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how you can take back control of your life, how you can reduce your blushing, how you can main thing is eliminate your fear, anxiety, and embarrassment around this blushing, how you can start becoming confident and charismatic in social settings, and how you can just, again, feel in control of your life and just be yourself and not feel like this blushing controls you and everything that you do. It's a miserable life. I know it, and I want to help you get out of it. So I'll be teaching you a 6-step system that helps you do just that. I apologize for moving myself around so often. I'm trying to make this video as quickly as I can, and that requires me to constantly be moving myself around. So this new system that I will be showing you helped me overcome my fear of judgment, helped me eliminate my my anxiety about this problem, and it really helped me with my anxiety about a lot of my social problems that I dealt with, and it helped me build a tremendous source of confidence. And this was as somebody who was socially anxious. I considered myself a socially anxious person. And thanks to the system, honestly, it helped me overcome all of my fear, my embarrassment, my insecurity, my anxiety, my self doubt. I still use it to this day because I think it's the single greatest system for overcoming all of these emotions that cause us to live very mediocre lives. I mean, these are the emotions that stop us from achieving our dreams, doing the things we want to do because we're so scared. And we live in pain every day just because we're too scared to confront it. And so this system will help you get out of that. And like I said, it doesn't require therapy, it doesn't require creams or makeups or medication or surgery or any sort of medical help like that. So, why should you listen to me? Who am I? That is a picture of me. My name is Colin Clem. I grew up just south of Detroit in the United States. I know a lot of you are from all over the world, so you might not know where that is, but it's okay. I'm from the United States. It's not anywhere in particular, anywhere amazing, exactly. But all you need to know is that I spent 10 years with this blushing anxiety, and that was from the ages of about 6 or 7 years old. I remember starting to deal with this. It was elementary, it was in school. I was constantly anxious about it. And it lasted until about the age of 16. Okay. And through those years, attention, any type of attention, made me turn completely red. It didn't matter if it was a one on one setting or if it was a group setting or if I was just sitting among people. Like, and the thought of them looking at me, that alone made me anxious. And so I was frequently embarrassed. I had constant anxiety about this, and it caused me to hate social situations. I avoided things. I didn't attend events because I knew I would turn beet red. I didn't hang out with people because I knew that the setting would be a huge trigger for me. And it was just getting in my way, and like every day was painful. I felt stuck with this issue, and I know many of you can relate to this. I know many of you out there feel stuck. And that's why I'm making this video, because I looked into everything. I tried distractions. I looked into all the different makeups and creams on the market. I looked into therapy. I looked up medications. And I honestly was like considering surgery because it was so painful. I'm glad I didn't do any of those things, but because they didn't seem like good solutions to me. And around this time, I was waking up every morning dreading the day ahead. And I even considered giving up my main goal of becoming valedictorian. And in the United States, I don't know how it is in other countries, but the valedictorian is the person who finishes at the top of their class. They finish with the highest GPA of their graduating class in high school or secondary school or whatever it's called in other countries. And the person who finishes as valedictorian has to give, well, at my school at least, has to give a speech at graduation, which was in front of over 1,500 people. And that thought of having to do that was like the scariest possible thing I could think of. And so this thing that I was working toward for years, and I was in first place. I had a perfect GPA. I took all the hardest classes and I was on pace to be valedictorian. And I considered willingly, willingly getting a bad grade in one of my classes just to ruin my perfect GPA and avoid having to give the speech. Like, that is ridiculous. And I knew it was. And I was like, this is stupid. I have to get over this. I was in pain and I had to get over it ASAP. And so I decided enough was enough. And I tried something different than normal. And it finally worked. And within weeks, I noticed massive improvement. I was joining clubs. I was becoming the leader in those clubs. I even started my own SAT after school test prep class that you can see on the left there. And that was me teaching a group of about 20 students some math problems that I was taking them through for one of the tests that were coming up. And this was because I was starting to build confidence in myself. And within 2 years, I was a completely brand new person. And by graduation, by age 18, I had little to no blushing. I had no embarrassment about this anymore. I had no anxiety. I didn't even think about it, truthfully. I thrived in social situations for the first time ever. Like, I genuinely liked social settings. I enjoyed going into them. I felt confident. I felt charismatic. It was amazing. I spoke in front of over 1,500 people twice. I felt in control of my life. I felt like I unlocked potential that I didn't even know I had, that I could do anything. And truthfully, my life was changed forever. It didn't feel like my blushing was in control anymore. It felt like I was in control. And I promise you, I just want all of you to experience that. And you can, but you have to be the one to believe. And since overcoming this, I've been able to do so much that I would have been too afraid to do otherwise. I've been able to travel around the country for work and for school. I went to Italy, you can see in the bottom right corner, with some people that I was studying with. And none of this would have been possible if I would have been too afraid of my blushing. All of this would have made me miserable. Having to go and meet new people and experience these things and network, that I would have been terrified to do any of this. And so it's really unlocked this whole new world that just wouldn't have been possible. And that's what drives me to make this video. And I'm not showing this to brag. I'm showing this to show what's possible for you, okay? And if you don't believe that this will work for you, then I promise you, you're just going to stay stuck. Because once I changed my mindset and I truly believed that I can overcome this, the system started working. And so I've taken most of the past year to analyze exactly how I overcame my blushing. And I've taken other people through that same process to really stress test it. And I've refined it into a system that would work for anyone. And I say that because I've taken other people through this system to see if it would work for them, and it does. And so this is just some of the people that I worked with early on. I mean, these are actually from like a couple of months ago, these testimonials. And but I wanted to include them just to give you an idea of how quickly people were getting results in their everyday life. And I want to highlight one here in the bottom right, and it says, this person told me, "I can't explain to you how much your video has helped me so far." She watched a video similar to this one of the original versions of this video. She said, "My mindset has already improved so much. It's still very hard, but after struggling so bad for years with blushing, I can finally see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm so grateful and so excited to begin feeling free. Thank you so much for doing what you do." And that was just after like a week or two of watching the video and starting to apply the things that I teach in this video to her life. And she started noticing true change for the first time ever after all these other solutions failed her. And so I can't promise you results with this system that I'm going to teach you. That really depends on if you take the actions required and if you keep an open mind. If you don't take action and you don't change your mindset, you'll never solve this problem. I mean, I hope that's really obvious, but I have to be clear about that because this really does require you to step into like a new version of you. Like, and you can do this. You absolutely can, because I was able to do it and I was suffering. I was so bad. But I got to a point where I was willing to try. And as long as you're at that point that you're willing to try, you can do this. I believe in you. And I am here to support you. So here's the system that helped me. I call it the Breakthrough Blushing Blueprint. And in order to understand the blueprint, you need to first understand the problem, because I think this right here is where everyone goes wrong. And this is probably where you've been going wrong this entire time. This is what made me want to start making content, is when I truly understood the problem that actually needed to be solved, because I realized everyone was trying to solve the wrong problem. And that's why they could never get over this blushing. So most people think that the blushing is the problem. Most people think that the blood that rushes to their face is the problem. And so they try to hide that redness. They try to prevent that redness from happening. But all of this does is it makes it worse. This is the completely wrong approach. You have to stop trying to hide and prevent the blushing. If you take anything away from this video, it's this. Like, trust me. Just trust me that every time you try to hide it, you try to prevent it, you run away from it, all of this stuff, you are making your problem worse. And here's why. So Here's what the normal blushing process looks like. Every single human in the world goes through this process. You have some sort of stressor that increases adrenaline in your body, which increases blood flow to certain areas of your body. Okay. Now, for us, some of that goes to the face. Some of that blood goes to the face more so than maybe other people, right? And if you're light skinned, you're very pale, it shows very easily. Okay. But here's the thing. This is not painful. Nothing in this process right here is painful. You have a stressor that maybe elevates your heart rate, but that increases your adrenaline, which still adrenaline being released in your body, nothing painful about that. And then blood flow through your veins isn't painful either. Sure, you might feel your cheeks getting warm, but there's literally nothing painful about that. And that's very important because people think they have a blushing problem. They think this part right here is their problem that needs to be solved. And so most solutions try to target this, but that's just wrong. You're not here for the blushing. You're here because of your pain. You're here to solve a pain. For you've always thought that you're trying to solve the blushing, and that's why you've never been able to solve it. Because you can't stop the blushing, and you don't need to. That's not what's causing your pain. You're here because of the pain you're in. So what is the source of that pain? Well, it's possible that you already know, truthfully. You may already know this. It's just that you haven't had a system to solve it. That's where this video comes in. And so you've opted for quick fixes instead because you don't want to confront how difficult it would be to figure this out on your own. The true source of your pain is not the blushing, as I've established. The true source of your pain is your fear of judgment from other people, period. You are obsessed with what other people think about you. You're so worried about what they might think or what they might say or faces they make or in all of this stuff. And that fear causes you to live in a confines of your comfort zone. And you're so afraid to step out of it because you're so worried about what some random person might say to you or somebody close to you or a stranger, whatever. It's a fear of judgment, period. Okay. And the reason that's important is because this is what your blushing process looks like compared to the normal one. So you go through the normal blushing process where you have the increased blood flow to your face. Again, not painful. Where the pain comes in is that after the blood rushes to your face, you start to feel embarrassed. You have this fear that other people are judging you for your cheeks turning red. And you're like, no. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so embarrassed. I can't believe this is happening. What does that do? That skyrockets your stress. Embarrassment is a stressor. And so now your adrenaline is skyrocketing and you cause more blood flow to your face. And then you get more embarrassed and you cause more blood flow, and you get more embarrassed and you cause more blood flow. And this is how that vicious cycle occurs. This is why you turn completely red. You don't just turn completely red for no reason. You will blush seemingly for no reason. You just have some minor stressor, some physical exercise, some whatever that increases your heart rate, increases your adrenaline, and causes some blushing. Sure, that'll happen. But the reason you turn into an absolute tomato and like it goes everywhere and everything is because of this embarrassed reaction. And it's this embarrassment is where your pain is. And what makes this even worse is that after you go through this once, you're like, oh my gosh, I hope that never happens again. And next time you enter a social situation, you start thinking about it and you start getting anxious. And anxiety is another stressor. So what happens is you just worrying about the blushing, being afraid of it, being anxious about it, causes you to start blushing. And then that triggers the cycle and you're stuck. That's where it just gets ridiculous from there. So this is how just thinking about blushing triggers the initial blushing. And then that's what triggers your embarrassment, your fear of judgment. And that's what causes this insanely vicious cycle that feels impossible to stop. because every time you try to stop this cycle, you genuinely increase your stress and make it worse. Every time you try to hide or every time you try to run away from it, you're panicking and you drive your stress up and you cause more of it. So that is why hiding it, running away from it, fighting it, all of that stuff is the worst thing you can do. And it's the wrong approach because you are what's causing your stress to increase. That mindset is what's causing your stress to drive your adrenaline through the roof and cause so much blood flow to your face and your neck. Okay. So blushing only became painful for you because you developed the belief that you shouldn't be this way. At some point, somebody pointed it out, or somebody made a comment to you, or you noticed it and you're like, oh my gosh, I wonder if people can notice, or somebody made a face at you at some point in the past and you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be blushing like this in front of people. Like that belief occurred somehow. It doesn't matter how. I mean, if you go into therapy, they'll try to figure out when this all started, most likely. But to me, I don't think it really matters because the point is you have this belief, however it got developed, whenever it got developed, doesn't really matter because the next steps are still the same. Okay. And so this is your problem. This belief that you shouldn't blush, the embarrassment, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't be seen this way. And then your anxiety about that embarrassment is the problem. That is the source of your pain. And so when I say overcoming blushing, I don't mean stop blushing. Very important point. The goal is not to stop blushing. When I say overcoming blushing, I mean removing the emotional pain around blushing. Okay? So when you use creams and makeups and medications and surgery, all you're actually doing is making that emotional pain worse. You are strengthening your fear and embarrassment. You're actively telling yourself that this is something that needs to be covered up, that you can't be seen this way, that this needs to be prevented, that this should be hidden. Like all of this stuff is making you believe that even more. You think you're helping yourself. You think you're getting yourself this quick relief, but you have to pull the Band-Aid off because you're just making this belief worse. You're becoming dependent on these things because the world's going to end if you're seen this way. That's what you're telling yourself. And so you need to get over that fear and embarrassment. And I'll tell you how with this system. But the first thing you have to do is stop using this stuff. Stop using this stuff. Stop trying to avoid the anxiety. Stop trying to avoid the embarrassment because that just makes you more embarrassed and more anxious over time. So highly recommend stopping using those. And one point that I want to make is about surgery, because some people will be like, oh, well, a surgery, if I got a surgery, this wouldn't be a problem at all, right? Because I physically couldn't blush. And so here's what I would say. This is my personal opinion. You can take it if you want. If you're here watching this video, I assume you don't want to use these things and you'd rather overcome this for good without using this stuff and do it the right way in a way that actually builds confidence. So if that's for you, this is my opinion, and you'll probably agree with this eventually, is that even if you had a successful surgery with no side effects, I would argue that you are more vulnerable than ever, because you never solved your fear of judgment. You stopped the blushing, but the blushing wasn't the source of the pain. Like I hope you really ingrain that in your head. There is nothing painful about this. The pain is that after this happens, you start thinking in your head, you have this mental conversation. Oh my gosh, what are other people going to think? That right there is the pain. And surgery doesn't solve that. Surgery doesn't magically make you stop feeling afraid of what other people think about you. And so choosing to change your body, physically stop something, physically alter the way that you are to please some made up judgment in your head or real judgment, even if it's real, it sounds like a terrible, powerless way to live because you're giving everyone else control over your own confidence and your own well-being. You are actively saying, I need to change the way I am in order to feel confident. But like change something that I can't control, not like your actions. Like you're changing a physical thing that you were born with. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to fit in. Like you're giving everyone else control over what you do, what you say, how you should look. That's not the way I want to live. I'll just say that. So we need to solve this. We need to solve this anxiety and this fear and this embarrassment. Okay. And so that is where the blueprint comes in. And in the next steps of this video, I see we're already at 25 minutes. I apologize. I'm trying to move through this as fast as possible. We'll keep going. So the rest of this video, I'm going to lay out the 6 steps of the blueprint to help you overcome this fear and embarrassment. I hope you understand my thoughts, why this is the true problem and why all these other quick fixes don't actually solve the problem. Then I'm going to give you quick breakdowns of each of the steps on how you can apply it in your life. And then I'm going to list some of the dangers to watch out for if you're going to do this solo. And then I'll give you an alternative method to avoid them. So this is the Breakthrough Blushing Blueprint, what you are about to see. There are 6 steps to this process. And this is just a system that I created to break down the process that I went through. So step number 1 is to identify. Step 2 is to plan. Step 3 is to prepare. Step 4 is to act. Step 5 is to collect your evidence. And then step 6 is to repeat and build an undeniable stack of proof. Okay? So those are the 6 steps. Let's go ahead and dive into each of them. Let's start with step 1. So step 1 is to identify. Now, in this step, you are going to identify the settings and the people that trigger your blushing the most. So you might currently just think you have this blushing problem and it happens randomly and you don't know when it's going to happen and all this stuff. But if you really think about it, there's probably a few situations in your daily life where this happens most often, or that you're most worried about it happening. It could be a particular meeting. It could be a particular class. It could be around a particular person. It could be around in a certain setting, like interviews or presentations or having lunch with somebody. Like there might be these specific moments where you always deal with it. That is what I'm talking about. There's these few moments that trigger your blushing more than anything else. Okay. And if you can overcome your fear and embarrassment there in those few problems, that solves 80% of your problem. There's this common principle called the Pareto's principle or Pareto's law, the 80-20 rule. Maybe you've heard of it as that. But essentially 20% of the situations are causing 80% of your pain. And if you can solve those 20% that are the main contributors, you remove most of your pain. And that's the whole point, is we want to target the situations that are really causing this for us to get us the most relief as fast as possible. Okay, so that's why step number 1 is to identify. And so if you're stuck, if you can't really think of the situations, just ask yourself, what are some of the situations you're dreading right now? Like think ahead, think about some of the things you're going to have to do in the future that relate to confronting your blushing that you're afraid of, and start there. Those are your situations. Let's move forward. So after you identify the situations, then you are going to plan a time to enter those situations. And you are going to plan a good time and a place to voluntarily put yourself in those situations. That's the most important thing. And we'll start with the least scary and we'll go to the most scary. You can actually jump as high as you want, but this is critical because the only way to overcome your fear, again, this is a fear of judgment, and the only way to overcome fear is to confront it. So you have 2 options. Option number 1 is to wait anxiously, then panic about it when it starts to happen. That's what you've been doing, and that's why you're here watching this video, because it's a miserable way to live. Or you can choose an easy situation to start with. You can voluntarily pick out the situation and say, I am going to start facing my fear right here, right in that setting, because I think I can handle it. Okay. And so the reason why planning is so important, the reason why we're going to volunteer is because you get more control. You need to start playing offense instead of playing defense all the time. You're always sitting around trying to avoid these situations, and then they happen anyway. You get caught by surprise, and then you have no idea what to say. You're super embarrassed, and it's just the worst thing in the world, right? I mean, that's what happens. At least that was my experience, and I imagine that's the same for you. And so you need to start attacking. You need to start, if you're going to blush and suffer from this anyway, you might as well confront it. You might as well be in control of when and where it happens, because then you get to pick when and where instead of that picking you. Very important. It sounds scary, but those are your two options. Wait around anxiously or face your nervousness, face your fear, and start with something that you think you can handle. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go with option 2. That's the only way out of this. Because once you plan, that allows you to do step 3, which is to prepare. The goal of prepare is to reduce your fear just enough to follow through with your plan, right? So the idea of choosing this time and place to confront your blushing probably sounds extremely scary. And I know it does, because I went through this. Trust me, my heart was pounding at the idea of that. But when you pick the time and place, you get the advantage of being able to prepare, okay? So there's 12 factors of fear, and one of the main ones is historical proof. That one I'll cover right now really quickly. I don't have time to go over all 12 that I've identified. And these are just my factors, by the way. I went through and I figured out what are the things that make us afraid. And I realized there's about 12 factors that contribute to it. And so I talk about that in my coaching program, and I can walk you through all of it to help you prepare for situations. And I'll try to make content about it as well. But for this video, we'll just focus on one of them, which is the main one, in my opinion, and that's historical proof. So your brain relies on proof to predict the future. It looks at the past to figure out what's going to happen next, right? And so when you're about to go into a situation for the very first time, or you're about to do something for the very first time, your brain doesn't have any proof to figure out what's going to happen. And so it has to make its best guess, and it can't figure out what's going to happen. And so it tells you, hey, don't do this because I don't know what's going to happen. Your brain doesn't like uncertainty. It perceives that as a threat. And so that's where fear comes from, is you just haven't done it. So when you start doing it, you start giving your brain proof in order to start making better predictions, and then it realizes that you're not going to die. Okay. And then that's when fear goes away. And that's what makes fear so difficult, is that you have to start by confronting it. And then after you confront it, it starts getting less and less scary. And so what you need to do in the prepare stage is to give your brain some proof that you're going to do well in this situation, that you're going to be okay. And you do that by practicing over and over and over again. So if you're going into a situation where you need to present, or you need to raise your hand or whatever, practice what you're going to say 1,000 times before. So for example, I actually haven't even given you examples about how I overcame this in my situation. I apologize. So in my experience, step 1, my identify, was that there was one class in particular where I was called on every single day. Every single day. I couldn't escape it. It's like he was picking on me on purpose. I think he was, actually, to try to get me out of my comfort zone. But that class I dreaded every single day. I knew it was going to happen anyway. And so I decided, okay, let me plan, step 2, plan to raise my hand at the beginning of class, so that way I can just get it out of the way and I don't have to worry about sitting there anxiously waiting to be called on. So that was step 2. And step 3 was, after I decided I'm going to do that, I spent the entire morning before school practicing what I would say. I was like, let me say this. It'll be quick. It'll be easy. And then I rehearsed it over and over and over and over again. It was like 3 sentences, but I practiced it for like an hour, practiced it like 20 times because I was so afraid. But after I did it like 20 times, I was like, okay, I know what to say. Let's do this. And I just toughed through it. I raised my hand, my heart was pounding, and I did it. That actually goes into step 4, which is to act. Okay, this is the most important and the most difficult step of the process. This is where you follow through with the plan that you created, and you're going to want to panic, but you need to practice staying calm. Okay. So as I raised my hand, as I went to go speak, expect to blush. I expected to blush. I knew that I would blush. But my goal shifted from not blushing to now trying to stay calm while blushing. My goal was now to face my fear. It was to get comfortable with blushing in front of people, to stop being so afraid of this, to stop letting this fear rule my life. That was my new goal. And so I went into the situation expecting to blush. I expected that panic, but I just practiced staying calm. Just take a deep breath, focus on something in the room, get back in the present moment, get out of that conversation in your head, and you're going to practice this process over and over and over. It's not fun the first several times you do this. It's not fun. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, this sucks. But it sucks more to keep living the way you have been. That's why you're here watching this video. You know it sucks. You know it sucks, or you wouldn't be watching this video right now. And so how painful it is to keep avoiding it, to keep fighting it. And so this is your only option. I'm telling you. And you just have to experience it, because once you do it, then you can collect some evidence. You have some proof, right? The first several times you do this, you're still going to be just as red, just as embarrassed as you always have been. You're going to think I'm wrong or whatever, right? Again, the goal isn't to stop blushing, though. The goal is to start building pride in yourself. It's to overcome this fear and start becoming the person who doesn't let this stop them. That is your goal. Become that person. Because after you start to do it, you now have some proof that you can face your fear, that you are capable of this, that you are capable of facing judgment and surviving. You're not going to die. You will survive. And having this little bit of proof makes your brain panic a little bit less the next time that you go into a situation. And so I recommend documenting each moment. Every time you do this, I say keep a tally of it. Maybe keep in your planner something that you're going to do today to confront your fear. Go up to the person, right? Raise your hand in the meeting. Volunteer to go first in your presentation. What else? Schedule a meeting with your boss. Whatever. Give somebody a compliment in the store. It doesn't matter what you do. Do these things to start building up your ability to go out there and face your fear of judgment and blush in front of people and learn to become comfortable with it. And then document every time you do that. Build this proof. That way you can look back on this proof even when you don't feel great, even when you don't feel confident. You can look back and say, I've done this before. I can do it again. Because you have this written down. Maybe you even write down some of the lessons that you learned, and you do this over and over. And step 6 is you're going to repeat this process and build an undeniable stack of proof that you will survive. You're going to repeat this over and over and over until your fear is gone. Identify a situation that scares you, where you know you're going to blush. Plan a time to enter the situation, prepare for it, act, and then collect your evidence. Repeat, repeat, repeat until your fear is gone. You'll notice yourself feeling less scared in social situations. You'll notice yourself feeling more confident. You're going to get better at socializing. If you put yourself in social situations over and over and over again, you're bound to get pretty good at learning how to speak, learning how to listen. Like it just happens. It just comes with practice, literally like any other skill. And so that's an added benefit that you don't get with covering it up, with using makeups and creams, with using medication, with using surgery. In fact, I just think you become more self-conscious just because you're giving into that fear of judgment. And so you'll start to realize as you go through this process that most people don't even care. You're making up most of this in your head. There's really probably 5% of people in your life that actually have said something or make a comment or make a face. Let's be honest. You think it's everybody, but like most people, they may notice, but they don't say anything, or they don't even notice. And so you need to stop looking for all this proof that it's that's embarrassing. And when you start putting yourself in these situations, you start realizing you were making this a way bigger deal in your head than it really was. And you'll stop caring about those people who still do care. You'll realize their opinion doesn't matter, that you have so much potential that you're ready to unlock, and they aren't going to stop you. And that is an amazing feeling. So that right there is the Breakthrough Blushing Blueprint. And when you use this system, you will solve your pain. You'll stop turning into a tomato. You'll be on your way to achieving your dream life. And it's just the only way to get through this. Okay. But we're not done yet. I want to quickly go over some of the dangers that you're going to need to watch out for, because now the real work begins. You have to start figuring out which situations that you're going to start with. You have to plan a time and place. You have to do all the preparation. You have to actually follow through. And then you have to repeat that process while documenting your progress until the problem is solved. This takes a while. This takes time. This is not easy. And it took me, for example, about 2 years to fully overcome this. Now, I do think if I had this, like if I had somebody like I'm trying to be right now helping me through this process, I think I could have overcome this faster. But I was trying to just figure this out on my own because there was like no information out there. And so it took me a while. But I hope that with this content, and if you want coaching with coaching, I can overcome that. I can help you overcome this so much faster. And so this can be done alone. But here's the dangers that I've seen from people trying to go alone. Okay. First is they get cold feet and they never even start. They watch this video, they feel good in the moment, and then they go back to their everyday life and they literally don't change a thing. They keep avoiding social situations. They keep using makeups and creams. They keep using their medication, and they keep considering surgery because they're just too afraid to confront it. That's the number one. Okay. And if that's you, schedule a call with me, because if you're going to get out of your comfort zone, just talk to somebody who has been through this. I promise. And you're not even going to see me after. If you don't even want my help, you could literally never see me again. So it doesn't really matter what happens, and I expect you to be nervous. So there's really no need to really feel too nervous about talking to me. But if this is you, hop on a call with me, and I will give you some help. 2 is falling back into old habits and thought patterns. This is a big one because people will start, they'll get some momentum, they'll have some early wins, and then I'll check in with them later on. Like they'll message me on social media. They're not like a client or anything. And I will reach back out to them. Hey, how you doing? And they're just as bad as when they started. It's because they fell back into their old habits. They stopped going out there and confronting it. They fell back into their old thought patterns, convincing themselves that this is something to be embarrassed about. And this is very easy to do because you're currently in an environment that's telling you this is something you need to be embarrassed about. And so many people are also held back by the same limiting beliefs that cause this. It's hard to break your beliefs if you don't have anybody to help break them for you, or if you keep living in the same environment that created those beliefs. It's very hard to get over them. You also might get stuck in a rut and not know what to do. That's a very common one as well, where you're making progress and then you run into a situation where you're like, oh man, what do I do here? And then you just can't seem to get over this fear and embarrassment around this particular person or in this particular setting. And you just don't know what to do. There's also the case of not knowing how to make a situation less scary to confront, where you literally just can't seem to face the fear in one particular setting. And so that one setting just rules you forever. And that goes into the 12 factors of fear, and I can help you overcome that as well. And I plan to make content on that in the future. There's also loneliness. I mean, this is a long journey. And for most of you, I've heard that you guys don't share this with anybody. And I get it, because I didn't really talk about this with anybody either. Even my girlfriend at the time. I just didn't tell her about this. And so I totally get it, not wanting to share it. But this is a long journey. And so trying to do this alone is extremely lonely. And you have no one to share your wins with. Every time that you confront a social situation and you make yourself proud and you face your fear, who are you going to tell? Who's going to relate? And so that's a huge danger I've seen for people going solo. And lastly is just slow and discouraging progress. Because of everything above, it takes forever to overcome this, and you get discouraged and you almost consider giving up. That's something that I've seen over and over. So if you want a customized plan to break through your blushing that is faster, easier, more enjoyable, more effective, then book a call with me below. Book a blueprint session. And what I'll do on this call is I will ask you about your experience. And if I feel like I can help you, then I can walk you through the exact path that I would recommend for you. This isn't a high pressure sales call. I genuinely just want to help. If it makes sense for you and you're like, this sounds cool and let's give it a shot, then we'll give it a shot. But at the very least, you're going to get something out of it. You're going to get a plan for your specific situation. And so if you're struggling with this, the best thing you can do right now is talk to somebody. And if you're nervous to book it, which most of you should be because you're socially anxious people, then it's a sign that you need to. It's a sign that you absolutely should, because the only way you're going to overcome this is by starting to confront your fear. And this is an excellent opportunity to. You're going to talk to someone. I'm not judgmental. Like, I'm not going to judge you because I know what you're going through. And it'll feel good for you to actually talk about this with somebody who understands. And so I hope that you feel comfortable enough to book that call. And if you feel afraid, like I said, that is the sign that you should do it. It's an opportunity for you to start facing your fear and becoming this new version of you who doesn't run away from fear. And this is how you become the confident version of you. And so prove to yourself right now that you have learned something from this video, that you made it through this video, and that you're not going to go back to your everyday life and do nothing about it, and that you're actually ready to make change. And you can do that by booking a call with me. So there's a button below this video. Be sure to book the call. There's going to be some questions for you. That's just for me to make sure that you actually suffer from this problem, because if you don't suffer from this problem, I probably can't help you. I can only help people who deal with this problem, and that's why I'm going to ask you about it on the call at the beginning as well. So answer those questions, book a time that works for you, and I really look forward to talking to some of you. And so I wanted to include just some testimonials from people who I have worked with, and there's been many more than this, but these are just two that I had that I wanted to note. The one on the left I wanted to include because this was just 2 days after joining my program. Leighton said, I've noticed a big improvement in my blushing recently ever since I've joined your program, and I've been experiencing blushing less frequently. And when I do blush, it doesn't bother me as much. However, there are times when I go red and it does embarrass me, but I just move on and forget about it. And so that was just 2 days after joining my program. Like, he hadn't even taken that much action yet, but because of the mindset I was able to help him understand, it really shifted the way he looked at the blushing, and he was able to remove a lot of that emotional pain that had been scarring him for years. And then there's also this one from one of our members, Amy, who she said, Colin gave me some really good advice on this. She was talking about her experience at a job interview recently. And she said that the main thing I've learned from this experience at her job interview is that you can't let your blushing hold you back. She said, I also think it's worth mentioning that since following Colin's advice, I've been blushing a lot less. A couple of months ago, I'm sure I would have been red for the entire assessment day. And that's even if I had the courage to go. So now, just because of the mindset that I've worked with her on, she has been able to do things that she would have been way too scared to do in the past. And when I say overcoming blushing, I don't mean to stop blushing. You will blush less as a result, but only after you stop getting so embarrassed and after you stop feeling so afraid of this. That's when you start turning this into a normal blushing cycle and you aren't in as much pain. So I hope to see you soon. I hope you book a call. Click the button below. I really encourage you to get out of your comfort zone and do it. I will be on that call waiting for you to help in any way that I can. I'm not going to pressure you to become a client of mine, but if that's something you're interested in, I can talk to you about what that looks like and the path that I would take you through. So with that being said, I hope you learned something from this video, and I wish you guys all the absolute best in your journey to overcome this blushing, because it sucks. There's not much information out there, and I don't want you to continue suffering. So with that being said, I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.